So one thing that my dad loves to do is to mow grass. And he woke me up this morning, said, hey, you mind if I get on the Toro and start trimming down the grass where we're gonna put the RV slip, which is gonna be all this area way back here from the post back there, all the way up to here. I gotta put a geotextile fabric down, and what we're gonna do is cut the grass as low as we can before we put the fabric down and before we put the reclaimed asphalt on top of it. I've already cut it down from 4 inches to 3.5 inches to 3 inches. Now he's at 2.5 inches. And we're gonna try to get it as low as possible. That way it's a little bit less vegetation to kill underneath it. And once we put the wrap down, we're gonna cover it again with that reclaim. Once the reclaim sits on it for a while, it's pretty much gonna kill everything underneath it. Gonna level it all out with the tractor and a box blade, and we'll be set to go. A lot of this is sandy loam, so the mower's sucking up a lot of grass and sand, throwing it out. And you know, this isn't the greatest thing you can do on the blades, but we're not doing a lot of it like this. It's only gonna be this one section right here that's essentially being cut that low. And again, that's for the purpose of getting it all leveled out, putting the geotextile fabric down, and then also putting the reclaim. What's going on, guys? So we are out here at the property and we are mowing the grass. So far, we've knocked out about 1.5 acres of grass each. And in front of me, my father's been operating this Toro Z-Master 2000 HDX, and I've been on the Scag Cheetah 2. We're gonna switch right now so we can kind of operate the other one back to back and see how they feel. Now, this is a really interesting mower, and it's interesting especially for my father because he's a big Toro guy. And I say a big Toro guy, that's not necessarily true. I think he just currently has a Toro, and the one that he happens to have is their top-of-the-line mower you would typically see on a golf course. It's called a Groundsmaster. What model is it?
It's a 3500D with a Kubota 4-cylinder diesel.
So yeah, so he's got a big boy mower. I guess what's the perk of something like that compared to like a standard commercial zero-turn?
Well, a lot of golf courses, you have a lot of contours, and the 3500D is generally considered a contour mower. It's got 3 floating heads that are rotary heads. They're not reels, and they are made to go around berms and the edges of sand traps and such without scalping the grass whenever you go over an undulation.
Okay, about how much would those things run when brand new?
I believe a new 3500D runs about 38,000.
Okay, so entirely different league of mower designed for a different purpose. This is designed for a commercial operator or a large acreage operator who simply wants to be able to have a really, really high quality mower that's designed to be able to cut a lot of grass very frequently. So this is kind of the step into the commercial lineup for Toro zero-turn commercial mowers. This also features the MyRide deck, which I've talked about in previous videos. Super comfortable, by far the most comfortable deck I've been on in terms of a zero-turn mower. Now, a question that I'm going to ask is, how many mowers have you had in the past? And before you answer that, I grew up operating a zero-turn mower. The first one I think I operated was a snapper, right? Yeah. And then, you know, I was riding on a mower. How old do you think I was at the time? Probably
13, 12.
12, 13 years old, and I was on a zero-turn. That being said, can you kind of go over how many zero-turn mowers have you had in the past couple of decades?
Well, I've kind of made it a hobby to restore, clean up, basically flip zero-turn mowers and small garden tractors. So I've probably had 25 or 30 zero-turn mowers. I've had John Deere's, I've had Exmarks, I've had the full range of each of those for the sizes that they make. And the one you started on was a 48-inch snapper, and most of them since then have obviously been bigger. My favorite size is a 54-inch. These are 60s. Not so good if you have any hills, but they're great for big flat properties like this one.
So my question to you is, you've now mowed, what, about acre and a half so far on the Toro. This is your first time on it. You've never, other than, I guess, just hopping on it just to check out the seat when you first got here. But as far as operating this mower, honest opinion, honest feedback in terms of how does it feel from a comfort perspective and from a mowing performance perspective?
Well, it feels light. It doesn't feel like a heavy mower. That partially, I think, is due to the fact that the seat's quite a bit higher than a lot of the zero-turns that I've had. I think the Exmarks and the Snappers, excuse me, the Skags, the seat's probably a good 4 to 6 inches lower, which gives you a much more solid planted feel. This one, you know, you're up in the air when you're riding it, especially when you're maneuvering. The suspension seat is very comfortable, but you can still tell it's not a real heavy mower as far as weight.
Okay, and that might be partially because, you know, a lot of commercial operators need to load them up on relatively light-duty trailers, and I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, this thing, I believe, again, weighs about 1,100 pounds, which certainly would put it at a lighter weight compared to some of the larger commercial mowers that are out there. Now, from a power perspective, right, we got 3 blades, 60-inch deck. They use what they call the Turbo Force deck, which, you know, like any of your higher-end decks, they suck the grass up and cut it, so it's just not pushing or making the grass down flat, and that's largely because of the deck design and the blades. This has the 23.5 horsepower Kawasaki commercial mower. How do you feel about the power and performance of this unit so far cutting?
I have no issue with the power of the mower at all. It's plenty fast. In fact, it's probably too fast for rough terrain. It has plenty of power. It hasn't bogged down on any of the thick spots, so I'm pretty impressed with it's a pretty efficient setup with that little horsepower that it does as well as it does.
Would you recommend, if somebody got the 2000 series or any of their commercial mowers, to go ahead and opt for the MyRide suspension system based on how it's felt so far with you?
I like the MyRide system, but when you're going over rough terrain, I'm not sure it makes a whole lot of difference because the whole mower is bouncing. So even though the seat itself is isolated, it's a little bit better than a regular suspension seat, but I don't know. It would depend on how much it is as an option. It's comfortable. It's definitely comfortable.
Okay, so, you know, honest feedback, and that's what I was looking for. Now, you know, compared to some of the other mowers you've had, X-Mark, you've had, what were some of the other ones you mentioned?
A lot of John Deeres, a lot of X-Marks.
Yep. How do you feel overall when you compare something like this to perhaps a similar model from them?
I like it. It's very maneuverable. I like the reach out of the trim side on the left of the deck. It makes getting around trees easy. And overall, it like I said, is very maneuverable, and I think it's, when I ride the Scag, I'll have a better idea of how I feel about this one.
Okay, well, let's take a look at the Scag real quick. Okay, so again, the Scag Cheetah 2, I bought this mower, I don't even know how long ago, maybe a month ago. You guys have seen some videos on it with some challenges that I've had, but I paid about $12,700, I believe, before tax. So it ended up being around $14,000 out the door. This mower over here was provided to me by Toro at no charge. It was provided for review and evaluation, and you know, it's a really good timing to provide it because it gives me the opportunity to kind of compare. This mower is significantly less expensive than this mower. So this mower right here is generally well under $10,000 or around $10,000 for that one versus, you know, about $12,700 for this one. That being said, this mower, 61-inch deck. It also has a really nice heavy-duty front lip to the deck. It's kind of reinforced from the back, whereas that one's reinforced from the front. It has a 38 horsepower Kawasaki compared to the 23.5 horsepower Kawasaki. This does have a suspension platform, similar in the sense that the entire platform is the suspension component versus just the seat. However, that's kind of where it ends, because this one here doesn't provide anywhere near the amount of suspension and dampening as the Toro does. And again, I've been operating this one for the first acre and a half. Now we're going to switch, and my father's going to get a really good opportunity to see how this one performs while we cut the rest of the yard, or at least the rest of this front part, so he can kind of get an idea of the differences between the two. And I think it's going to be pretty profound when he does it. Power, speed-wise, it's really hard to tell a huge difference because we're cutting at a manageable speed, and we're cutting grass that probably 6 inches tall, 6.5 inches tall, maybe 8 inches tall in some areas. It's not terribly tall, and they're both doing a phenomenal job. Neither of them sound or feel like they're bogging down at all. But again, we'll be able to kind of check the differences between the two. I have a feeling, and it's just my gut feeling, that the ride quality of the two is going to be vastly different because of that MyRide system. Anyways, we're going to hop back on the mowers, and we're going to do another side-by-side comparison to see which one ends up on top for my father. All right, so we finished this lawn super quick. So this area up front is about 3 acres. How long do you think it took us to do the whole thing? The two of us? An hour, maybe. So yeah, we finished it up pretty quick. Anyways, Now, I've had an opportunity to get on the Toro. I moved from the Scag to the Toro, so it's kind of this back-to-back comparison. I'm going to be honest with you because I want you guys to know the facts about everything. So the MyRide system, though it is squishy, and though I do enjoy it and it's smoother, I like the way my father described it. When you still hit bumps, you feel them, especially big bumps, because there's some really big bumps out here. And the thing you have to keep in mind with the MyRide system is over most lawns, it's going to be pretty dang smooth. But then when you hit a big transition or a big bump, because it's on this spring shock absorbing platform, sometimes it can kind of give you that feeling like it's launching you up a little bit and then coming back down. So you feel that additional movement. Now, that being said, it's still super comfortable compared to most. If I had to compare it to the Scag, and I gave the Scag, let's say on a comfort scale, 1 to 10, I gave that like a 7, I'd have to say this is like an 8.5. So it is, in my opinion, better, but is it, you know, groundbreakingly so much better? It's kind of up there, but it's definitely better than most other mowers I've been on. That being said, great mower, works really well. That's my opinion. What about you?
The most noticeable difference to me, other than the incredible amount more power the Scag has, it just wants to go. When they named it Cheetah, it was pretty appropriate. It's fast. It doesn't feel light, but it feels fast. Other than that, it's on a comfort level. If I could take the Scag seat and put it on the Toro, I think you'd have a really happy seat, because there's a much better lumbar support in the Scag seat cushion itself. Both of them are very comfortable, but I think if I had to ride one of them all day, I'd probably want to use the Scag, because over the rough terrain, the suspension is nice on both of them to have, but when you get right down to it, the comfort of the seat is in the cushions to me.
Okay, so the cushion and the padding of the seat is kind of the winner. The platform on the Toro would be the winner, so it's kind of combining the two, which would be perfect. And it's not really a fair side-by-side comparison in the sense that, again, this has a 38 horsepower motor on it. This has a 23.5 horsepower motor. So from a power plant perspective, they're kind of worlds apart in that sense. From a budget perspective, you know, the difference in price between the two, this is about the equivalent of buying a mower plus a Lowe's or a Home Depot mower on top of that to compared to this in terms of price. So in terms of cutting performance, and we've repositioned the Toro slightly so you can see this a little better, how did you feel about how they each performed? Like, what were the pros and cons of both of them in your opinion?
There were no cons for either one, really. There was one little difference that I noticed when we were cutting grass and trying to get up close to a fence with the front of the mower. The Toro would cut about 3 or 4 inches closer than the Scag, and I attribute that to the fact that this front of the Scag deck is angled down at about a 30-degree angle, whereas the Toro is nearly vertical, if not vertical, which allowed the Toro to cut a little bit closer on a 90-degree approach to a fence line.
Yeah, when we were first going around, I noticed there were areas I was trying to get up against, and I ended up actually pushing the fence slightly to get to them, but you were able to come behind me and get those same areas without hitting the fence. So that was kind of cool. I guess from a overall performance from a speed perspective, I mean, it's probably going to be obvious that the Cheetah is going to be faster because it does have the larger motor on it. In terms of cutting performance from a power perspective, did you really notice much of a difference?
Well, the Scag definitely will go a lot faster than the Toro, but there's a trade-off. When you have speed in a mower, you pay for it in roughness, because every little bump gets magnified if you're going faster. So if I had the Scag, I wouldn't run it wide open unless it was perfectly flat golf course fairway type of a lawn. In the stuff out here where you've got all the bumps and the little gopher mounds and things, every little one of those hurts more if you're going fast.
Yep, so when you're going slower, which, I mean, we weren't going terribly slow. I mean, typically I'd probably say we were somewhere between about 6 and 8 miles per hour. So when you look at the speed of the mower and how they're cutting, if you're cutting at a normal speed, I think the Toro is probably going to be the clear winner in terms of overall comfort. When you start hitting really big holes, big gopher runs, and large divots in the ground, you really feel it. But all that being said, keep this in mind again. The Scag Cheetah is more comparable to a Toro 4000 or 6000 series, which is their larger frame, larger horsepower tractor. And what we're doing right here is comparing a mower that is significantly less expensive to the second highest Scag zero turn that they make. And, you know, apples to apples from a value perspective, which one would you spend your money on?
Just simply on a value per dollar, to me, the Toro would probably be the choice. I don't need all the power and speed of the Scag, and I like the Toro. I've been a Toro user for many, many years, and I just think that dollar for value, the Toro's the winner on this one.
You know, it's kind of interesting. When we picked up the Toro, one thing the dealer said, and he carries a couple other brands, he said Toro's fit and finish is generally superior in his opinion to what he sees on a lot of other mowers. And I would venture to agree. When you look at the Scag looks more like of an industrial machine. It looks more like, I don't want to use the term crude because it certainly doesn't look crude, but it doesn't look as, I guess, finished as perhaps the Toro. Can you kind of see that as well when you look at the two?
Well, I think the Toro's prettier just because it's made to appeal aesthetically as well as in a performance way, but the Scag, it's all about business.
Yeah, that's one thing you can tell. But overall, two really, really great mowers. At the end of the day, you heard it from my father, who's a zero-turn fanatic and a small tractor fanatic, and he would spend his money on the Toro, mainly because you get so much for the price, and you don't sacrifice really anything. The Scag, super, super heavy mower. It is definitely a commercial mower. Both these are commercial mowers. You get a lot of mower for your money here. They both will do the job very well. But at the end of the day, you know, it comes down to personal preference. And for me, the MyRide system is pretty fantastic. And that would probably win my business over the Scag. It would be really interesting to see how the 4000 or the 6000 performs compared to this as well. From an overall speed perspective, the Cheetah probably would edge it out slightly. But we'll be running these more, and we'll be seeing specifically how well the Toro holds up against the Cheetah and the Cheetah holds up against the Toro. So guys, if you haven't had a chance, now's a great time to subscribe to my channel if you like the lawnmower segments. Hopefully you do. If you haven't had a chance, again, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and we will be back to talk to you again very soon.